Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to the Gold Biz podcast with me, your host, Rachel Traxler. This is truly an honor to have Kelly Roach on the podcast today. She is a seriously amazing entrepreneur that has successfully run 6 businesses and surpassing the 8-figure income mark. So her insight and knowledge behind her methods are truly revolutionary, and I know you're going to love this one. But before I dive in, if you are a regular listener of the Gold Biz podcast, please leave a review. I'd love nothing more than to just hear from your beautiful voice on what you love about the Gold Biz podcast, and would love to also share the love in return on that. Okay, so you know I'm a no fluff, to the point education girly, so grab your notes app and let's go. Kelly, I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And this is going to be a fun topic too, because we as photographers and entrepreneurs, we love branding, we love marketing, we love all of that. But I want to lean into and talk a little bit deeper into how to build like a thought leadership brand and what that looks like from your perspective, and how we can kind of create one and then leverage it for our marketing as well. And I know that you kind of talked about the concept of conviction marketing and maybe how it's a little bit different than just the normal traditional marketing approaches. Can you talk a little bit about that to kind of just start us off here and kind of set the stage and set the tone?
Yeah, absolutely. I created conviction marketing because back a couple years ago, I saw that there were a lot of kind of pop-up fads and trends that were happening with social media marketing. And I do teach a lot of visionaries and thought leaders, and I've helped many people build 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses. And I saw that a lot of the stuff that was getting really popular was kind of like doing more to diminish people's thought leadership than it was to actually elevate the authority of their brand. And so I wanted to create a framework that people could follow to build their businesses online and to really continue to provide thoughtful, meaningful, and high converting content without feeling like they had to participate in trends and fads and constantly be chasing new tactics online, that as soon as you learn it, the strategy changes. And so you're constantly just on this, I call it like the online hamster wheel of marketing hell, right? Like you're just, as soon as you learn one thing and you finally get going with it, the trend changes. And the thing that has been so interesting, with creating conviction marketing brands, and it ended up, I wrote the book, I taught it to all my clients, they all started using it, they've been growing their businesses like crazy. And then we ended up actually building an entire marketing agency around it. That's one of my 6 companies. And, we've been helping these brands get these exceptional results. And I think the biggest thing behind conviction marketing is literally conviction. And so much of what people are doing online is they're being taught to do whatever is trending that week, whether it's with an audio or if it's a certain style of video or it's talking about a certain topic or whatever the case. And what that actually does is it actually blends your brand in, because now you're doing exactly the same thing that everyone else in your space is doing. Like they're all watching and mimicking the same people doing the same things. And it's like, it got to a point, and you've probably seen this as well, where like, you could go look at 10 websites of people in the same industry and you could literally like black out their face and like you wouldn't even know. Like you're like, what's the difference between these brands? And so the whole idea is zigging when everyone else zags. It's literally being in what I call the zeitgeist of your buying populace, which is understanding the conversation that's already running in their head and meeting them where they are, like really being in the consumer mentality, in their buying psychology, understanding the pressing needs and the urgent conversation that's on their mind and speaking to that, versus what most people do when they're building their brand is they're like, all right, let me see what everyone else is doing and let me make sure I'm doing that too. Let me make sure I'm hitting on this. Let me make sure I'm talking about that. Let me make sure that I'm also making sure people know that, I have this, this, that, and the other. And so it's just kind of a opposite approach to marketing. But what it does is it creates staying power for brands, and it allows people to build content that has timeless value versus just momentary value, which is really, really important too.
Okay, Kelly, I can like almost see and feel the collective head nods of yes. Just hearing you say that, especially as photographers too, and social media, and just seeing, yes, like you said, trends that you feel like you have to do and you have to hop
Yeah.
on and do to kind of have a chance at being seen or staying relevant or just applying it to your niche and all that stuff. I don't know, like we've gotten so focused on that you're so right that all that does is blend you in. Even if you have a different approach, even if you have a different approach to your specific like trend and audio trend that you're using, it's still, I don't know about you, but if I'm scrolling on social media and I hear a trending sound, I'm like, I just scroll right past it. I'm like, I hear this a million times. I'm just going to scroll right past it. And that does not
Yeah.
make you memorable. That
Yeah.
certainly does not make you stand out. And it's certainly not good for your marketing either.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I really love that approach.
Well, and here's the other thing that is really, really important because, I developed this concept at the front end of this. And when I rolled this out, it was the time where everyone was jumping on all these trends and they still are, right? So
Mhm.
the book has stood up to time very well. But what's really interesting is now it's like fast forward. I think it's been almost, so the book came out in 2022. So I wrote it probably 2021, came out in 2022. We've had a couple years of really seeing, well, how did this play out? Right. And what's so interesting is so many of the influencers and so many of the people that have been teaching these trends and these strategies, they're now coming forward and saying, oh, I'm shutting that account down because I got tons and tons of followers, but they weren't my ideal market. Or I'm not using those strategies anymore because I get massive amounts of fans and followers, or I can make videos go viral, but none of them are buying anything.
Mhm.
And so that's the thing, is that people get caught up in the numbers and they get caught up in the dopamine hit and they get caught up on I need to look like my brand is really popular. So I need to do these things that are going to get all of this engagement. My brands have never gotten the kind of engagement that most of the big name influencers have ever, because I don't do any of that type of content very intentionally. And yet I'm one of the only female brands that crossed over 8 figures with my first business, went on to build 5 companies beyond that initial business. One of them just had their first $100,000 a month. 2 of them are also on pace and should be hitting their first $1 million year this year. So I think it's really like asking yourself the question, like, is it about participating and getting a participation trophy so that you look popular? Or is it about you actually building your business? Because those are 2 different strategies, right?
It's so cool to hear your perspective. And it's such an honor to have you here and talk about this as well, because
Yeah.
I do see a lot of times where people are using social media. And I'm going to use photographers, for example, because that's
Mhm.
the majority of the audience listening,
Yep.
is that the goal is, yeah, how can I have high performing
Mhm.
reels? How can I make
Yeah.
videos that potentially go viral? And then you kind of have to ask yourself, why do you want them to go viral? And what's going to happen if they do go viral? Exactly what you said. You're going to bring in and attract people that might not necessarily be your ideal client. And then what's
Yeah.
that? You have to ask yourself and dig deep. Why do you want that? Why do you want that vanity metric? Like, why is that so important to you over serving and speaking to your ideal clients? Because I have found that some of my pieces of content that have performed the lowest in terms of, I'm saying air quotes, the lowest in terms of vanity metrics, have been the highest converting for me, because it's so specifically talking to my ideal specific client that is actually converting them and allowing them to take action and drive action back
Yeah.
to me. Those are the ones that are actually bringing me in the most income, the most business,
Yeah.
connecting the most. And so I think when this is such a cool conversation, because when you can strip down just almost like the why and the psychology behind it, like you were saying, of why that's important to you, it can kind of shift your mindset a little bit.
For sure. For sure. And I think that there's so much pressure to feel like you're keeping up and so much pressure to feel like you have to participate in everything that's
Mhm.
going on, that people are constantly getting burnt out on content creation. And that's like really bad. Like, you can't afford to get burnt out on content creation, because content creation is literally, you don't have, when you're running an online business, you don't have a brick and mortar, you don't have physical products. Your content is your product.
Mhm.
And so you can't get burnout on creating content. And that's why I wrote this book, because it's so important that you're creating things that bring you joy, that bring you satisfaction, that feel authentic to you, that actually you want to create, so that you can continue to do it. Because, I've been in the online space. I started my first company in 2012, and I've seen so many people come and go. I've seen so many people have their moment with their name in lights, and then the next year it's like, what happened to that person? Oh, they had this, health crisis. Oh, they had this mental issue. Oh, this happened. Oh, they burnt their business down. Oh, they shut it. You have to be cognizant of what do you want the span of your business to be in your overall life plan, and make decisions in the day to day that are going to facilitate that. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, because that's almost like the fastest route to burnout. It almost sounds
100%.
like. And
100%.
yeah, it's longevity and what you can do for longevity. So even
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that, what are maybe some strategies that photographers can utilize to establish themselves as authority and leaders in their industry and within their niche, without having to rely on those trends or relying on something that's going to burn them out?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is relying more on your intuition and less on the guidance of what you're seeing other people doing, because photographers are artists. You're an artist. Literally, you see things that the average person doesn't see, right? My sister's a photographer, and she sees through the lens something that I would never see. The naked eye of the average person wasn't given that gift. And so if you're a photographer, you're an artist, lean into being an artist. Go take pictures of things that exercise your gift, that put you in a position to share things online that are unique because they are unique, not because you're trying to frame something up to be a match for what you think is expected of you. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, obviously, one of the things that holds people back from a creative realm, of having successful online businesses, is that they're not focused enough on audience building or content creation or visibility or whatever the case. But if you're going to do work to be visible, if you're going to do work to build your brand, I think the most important thing is to tap into your gift and to do it your own way. You can pull strategy for building your social media from people that teach strategy for social media, but make your art your art,
Yes. I feel like that's something that's so good, Kelly. And I feel like that's something we need to hear, because I feel like as photographers, we are so close to our zone of genius. And I even needed to hear that, because I am a photographer and I never think, oh, I do see things differently than people. And even you can put two photographers next to each other, and those two photographers see something different. And so
Exactly.
that's kind of the beauty of I hear a lot that it's a saturated market. There's a lot of photographers in, your area and all that stuff. And that's just a prime example of there's room for both of you. There's room for more than one. You can put two photographers next to each other. They see things completely different. They use light different. They pose different. They direct different. They interact and communicate and serve different. And so that's just a good reminder of that you can still build your established brand in your own way, and it's going to be different. So I really needed to hear that. I love that you said that. And I think
good.
other people
I'm
are
so
going to
glad.
really resonate with that too. So thank you for that. I think that's a really good point. So maybe someone that's earlier on in their business and just growing, but they want to have that longevity. They want to build that authority and leverage, having that leadership role that they want other people to look at their business and say, yes, they are kind of a leader in their industry and what they do. What's something that you think makes people stand out, that they have that it factor or they don't? Or what's lacking when you look at businesses that don't have that?
Well, let's just talk about people in businesses like photography and what holds them back in particular. It's undercharging. Because what most people that get into a business like photography don't calculate when they look at what they're charging for a shoot is the travel time and all the costs for the time for editing, and them having to have an assistant, and the coordination back and forth, and finding a location, and going back and forth with whoever they're shooting for about the vibe. Maybe they're doing a prep call, maybe they're doing multiple prep calls. And what I always tell people is, to build a successful business, 85% plus of your time has to be dedicated to sales and marketing. Otherwise, it will not fly. And what a lot of new service-based providers, especially people like photographers, because they're so giving and they care about their art and they
Yes.
want their clients to be happy, is they undercharge. And then what happens is they have to go back and spend countless hours editing those photos. And now they're spending the time that they need to be building their business, marketing on social media, going live, sharing their portfolio, all of those things. And now they don't have the energy or the time to do any of those things because it's just a miscalculation. So it's okay to have less shoots, but to charge more of a premium price so that you can take the time in between shoots to get your portfolio up online and to make sure you're getting stories up and to make sure that you're actually doing all those other things to promote the brand. That's a huge thing that I see in these types of businesses in particular.
Yeah, and that's awesome because that's something we talk about a lot here on my podcast
Mhm.
is charging premium pricing, what that
Yeah.
looks like. What I'm hearing is if you're not doing those things, it's the fast track to burnout, to be honest. And I do feel like people are going to love that you said that of the undercharging part because it's almost like a little wake up call of
Yeah.
we do love what we do so much. We love to photograph
Yes.
and we love the
Yes.
people and we love the art and we
Mhm.
love to create. And so I do find for myself, and I know other photographers, that it's really easy to just kind of give in
It
and
is.
say, oh, I won't charge you travel for that. Or I'll shoot your wedding
Yeah.
for free if you fly me here. Or
Yeah.
I'll add a few extra photos or I'll just stay an extra hour. And we're lenient with that. And that's okay. That's totally okay. But creating, a brand that what I've been able to do over the years as well is just kind of like create a brand that has those boundaries and expectations that a client would know to never ask or request of
Yeah.
that. Or if they
Yeah.
do, they preface it with saying, I respect your time. I know you're busy. I know that like you're
Yeah.
worth this. You're valued at
Yeah.
that. And so it's kind of creating that brand that essentially the goal is so that your clients already know that without having to ask
Yes.
you. I think that's
Exactly.
kind of the goal when creating this
Exactly.
brand with authority and leadership in your industry with
Mhm.
experience too, because I want to also note you can get here, you can get to this kind of state in your brand and business without having 10 plus years experience. Like, yes,
Yeah.
having 10 plus years experience in your business, yes, it comes
Yeah.
with its pros.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's going to be a really good way to establish, but you can get there quicker. Or you can
Oh,
just,
yeah.
like you said, Kelly, focus on your marketing and sales quicker and sooner. And if you kind of know that and know what you need to focus on sooner, you might get there sooner than someone who didn't
Yeah.
realize that and then they're still building their business for 10 years
For sure.
focusing on the wrong things.
For
So,
sure.
just want to shed light on that too, that you don't have to have all of that just to be a
Yeah.
leadership in
For
the
sure.
industry. But then also looking at the market, just the digital online business space and all of that stuff, where do you think that it's going to go and how it's going to change? What do you think the future holds for this space and how we are going to be able to show up and run our businesses and kind of adapt to all of these things accordingly?
Yeah. Yeah. I think photographers should really start thinking about a recurring revenue model. Traditionally, photography, like real estate, is like, you get a client, you get a job, whatever. And then, obviously you build on referrals and you hope to get the next job and the next job and, whatever the case. But I think finding, whether it's families or whether it's friend circles or whether it's this or that or the other, and just having a great strategy for being someone's go-to photographer. And, instead of booking one shoot at a time, really looking at how there's an opportunity to lower the burden of having to run your business on a job by job basis, if that makes
Mhm.
sense,
Makes
because
complete
that's
sense.
very challenging. It's very challenging for any business, right? So making sure that your clients know all the different types of shoots that you do that are in your realm. And if you do shoots that are very specific, for example, like weddings, hopefully hopefully there's only one, but being very, very good at infiltrating a full circle of bridesmaids and getting 10 jobs at a time, right? Versus one. Just being really strategic about going from like operating almost like a freelancer to having recurring revenue, I think is going to be important, because it's such a lift to have to rebook, by single appointment like that, I would say is one. And then two, I think, as with a lot of service providers, so many photographers are so like protective of their craft, and, they don't necessarily want to bring someone in to do the editing for them, or bring in another photographer to do the overflow or whatever the case. But I think also thinking about like building your team and thinking about like what elements of the actual art you still want to do or need to do, and is your intent to actually build out a photography company, or do you truly want to be a freelancer, right? Those are two completely different things.
Mhm.
So just thinking about like what your income goals are, and what your actual life goals and vision looks like, and how you see the business fitting into that.
Yes, that is such a good one, and I feel like my business changed completely when I adopted like a recurring revenue model, and
Mhm.
that's something that I am excited to kind of talk about and lean into for
Mhm.
2024 and on, to like share
Awesome.
with other people, because it's something that made a huge impact for myself, because it is stressful when you think,
Yeah.
oh, I have to book the next one and then I book this. Or I see a lot of photographers say, I got a big retainer, like deposit payment in, and now I haven't booked in 2 months. So I haven't gotten any income in 2 months. And now I'm stressed. And now I'm running my business in a place of scarcity and
Yeah.
stress, versus running it from a place of confidence
Yeah.
and knowing where that next inquiry and booking and payment is coming from, knowing it's coming in, and just being in charge of your numbers and knowing all of that too. There's so much power in that. So I do love, love, love that one. I think that's so good. But
Yeah.
Kelly, this was amazing. Like so many good things to
Oh,
take away, and just even
good.
put a different mindset around just for moving forward in your business in like this year and moving forward and all that. So is there any like last piece of advice that you have for photographers around this topic?
I would say just think like a business owner. You know what I mean? Like, I think all the photographers that I know, and I have a regular photographer that I use 4 or 5 times a year in my
Love
business.
that.
I'm always doing brand photography all the time, and we refer her all the time. And so, and then my sister's a photographer. And, I think that photographers are just such heart centered people,
Mhm.
and they care so much about their craft. And that's, why when you find a good one, it's so amazing, right? And you want to keep that relationship. But I think for you to protect yourself, just making sure you're charging enough, making sure you're thinking about recurring revenue, making sure that you're getting enough help in the business so that you can keep the business running and keep your pipeline full, so that you have jobs booked every month going out into the future, and just kind of like elevating up that vision above just the transaction of what's happening shoot to shoot, but instead like what's happening as a brand and what's happening to elevate the overall business strategy, right?
Yes. Oh, so good, Kelly. I love this. I love your heart and I love your brain. This is
Thank
so many
you.
good things from this. This is going to be a good one. And I always love to end my episodes too by asking just what's bringing you joy right now. It can be anything.
Oh, there are a lot of things that are bringing me joy right now, but the biggest thing is my daughter is 10, Madison, and I am just loving this time of life so
Oh,
much with her. And me and my husband are just trying to like have every moment we possibly can to just like soak that in. And so I would say that's the number one thing for me right now.
I feel that. It's so fun how that's a common answer is our little children bringing us so much joy, our little humans. I love that. And I can
Yes.
relate to that, just soaking up every moment of
Yes.
every day. And no matter what season you're in life, I think that's so important. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. Why
Yeah.
don't you tell us all where we can find you?
Yes, well, definitely come follow on Instagram. My handle is Kelly Roach Official, and just pop in my DMs and say hello. We're always putting out like free resources and awesome stuff that you can use to grow your business for free. And my podcast is called The Kelly Roach Show. So come and listen, get inspired, get strategy to grow your business, and would love to have you come and spend time with me there each week.
Ah, amazing. Well, what an honor to have you on. Thank you so much. We'll make sure to link all of your links in the show notes, but thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it. I hope that you loved this episode as much as I did. I feel like I can collectively see all of our heads nodding yes throughout the entire episode. Mine certainly was. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know. So make sure that if you loved this episode as much as I did, that you screenshot it and share it to your stories so that I can see which episodes you're loving the most and then also share the love in return. But thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I appreciate you as always. Keep shining, and we'll see you next time.